This is your introduction to critical reviews. You'll learn what they are, what they do, and why they matter. A critical review is just categorizing papers based on 3 categories. We assign a paper a rank 1 through 6 in each of the following: causality, how the study got the results; external validity, how applicable those results are; and robustness and transparency, which examines the statistical and quantitative aspects of the paper. There are many different ways to analyze and review published work in academia. To better understand what a critical review is, let's look at a few of the most prominent types of reviews so that we know what a critical review is not. Another reason it's important to learn about different types of analysis is because you'll likely come across them while doing your critical review. You can't really give a causality score to a paper that never ran an experiment, so you need to know what to look for and when to exclude a source from your critical review. This pyramid demonstrates how some forms of published content are more rigorous than others. As the quality of the evidence increases, the risk of bias decreases. On the bottom, we see editorials and opinions. Then we move up in the quality of evidence to things like case reports, surveys, and observational evidence. Case control and cohort studies are very common in the learning and teaching literature, often splitting treatment by class instead of by individual. The best for determining causality is a randomized control trial. This is the best way to eliminate bias from a study and, in combination with other statistical methods during analysis, truly claim causality. The strongest conclusions are drawn from a combination of these randomized control trials. Let's review the difference between a literature review and a literature deep dive. Literature reviews are comprehensive, but they are not exhaustive, meaning that they don't try to include all of the literature on a given topic. Also called narrative reviews, they're much shorter than deep dives, and they can provide context or background information for a new piece of research, and will state gaps in the literature and where their study can fill in. Deep dives, on the other hand, aim to be exhaustive. They're much longer because they include a lot of the sources and more of the broad ideas of the topic. They stand alone as a general guide to what is already known about a particular topic, and they don't aim to answer a specific question. A critical review is sort of the sequel to a literature deep dive. A non-systematic review of the literature, like a textbook or even a deep dive, does not systematically try to eliminate bias. But as the name indicates, systematic reviews do. Here's a list of things usually required by systematic reviews. This middle part right here is really what sets a systematic review apart from a critical one. Search terms, date range, exclusion criteria, and screening process. The experiment itself is the synthesis of literature. You'll also often see forest graphs like these, especially in meta-analyses. A meta-analysis is a type of systematic review. The main thing here is that they compute a combined effect size, sort of like a statistic of all the statistics. If you don't know much about effect sizes, don't worry. We don't quantify them in the critical review. Now, why aren't all systematic reviews meta-analyses? Because while meta-analysis can give us a more precise effect estimate, it can be misleading if we conduct it with bad data, like if the subjects weren't randomized, or we're comparing apples to oranges, or things comparing data that's too different across studies. Reviews that do not contain a meta-analysis are still very helpful in synthesizing study data. Let's compare systematic and critical reviews to better help us understand what a critical review is and is not. While they have some overlap, the main thing to remember is that systematic reviews and meta-analyses are much more rigorous in their search for sources. Because we tried to be exhaustive in our literature deep dive, we broaden our scope to find any and all valuable insights on our topic. Systematic reviews tend to search only specific databases and keywords. While there are benefits to their rigorousness, our inclusion criteria and screening process is much less strict. If you want to learn more about the different types of analyses and reviews, the sources and additional resources will be listed in the description.